Here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
What's up, Supernatural superfans? I'm Krissy Lenz.
And I'm Nate McWhorter.
And we're the host of
Gank That Drink,
a supernatural drinking game podcast.
It's the podcast where we make up drinking game rules for a favorite episode of our favorite show, Supernatural.
We recap the episode for you and let you know how all the rules played out.
Then we let you know the drinking game rules for the next episode, so you can play along.
Plus, members get every episode early and ad-free,
with some extra bonus content chit-chat at the end of each episode as a member exclusive.
So download Gank That Drink, a supernatural drinking game podcast wherever the finest podcasts are available.
And or become a member at truestory.fm/gankthatdrink.
And when you're out there in the world saving people and hunting things,
you know, the family business.
Keep the Gank That Drink motto in mind. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.
Ever wonder where the devil got his horns?
How about those cloven hooves?
Or that pitchfork?
Wasn't he an angel?
No, he was a snake.
No, he's the great red dragon.
No, he's the beast.
He's the prince of this world.
Prince of darkness.
Well, he's the prince of darkness.
Good morning, star lovelies. One of my names is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I sometimes go by Keenan Diaz.
And we're the hosts of the brand new podcast, The Devil's Details. What comes to mind when I say Lucifer?
How about Satan?
What about just the devil? How did the big bad of the Western world end up with so many faces? Join us as we dig up, decipher, and deconstruct the devil's many forms throughout history.
Take a guided tour with Dante through the 9 circles of hell.
Or revisit Satan's angsty bad boy years in Paradise Lost.
Learn the ins and outs of a Faustian contract.
Easier than a 1099, but with a hell of a lot more fine print.
Slither on over to The Devil's Details on True Story FM and join us in the diabolic discussion.
Love and hisses. Mwah! Didn't Al Pacino play him in a movie?
Are you sure that wasn't Robert De
I
Niro?
could have sworn it was Tim Curry.
That was Elizabeth
Didn't he go down to Georgia at some point?
And welcome to the most excellent 80s movies podcast. It's the podcast where a filmmaker and a comedian splash their way through the 80s movies we think we love or might have missed with these our modern grown-up eyes to see how they held up and to see if we still love them or if we think they should stay in the 80s where they belong. This is Splash, of course, a movie selection from 1984, about which Google says, a young boy saved from drowning by a beautiful mermaid falls in love with her 20 years later when she returns to seek him out. Before he can choose between life on dry land or a deep-sea paradise with his dream woman, the lovers are rudely interrupted by the intervention of a scheming scientist. And here's the trailer.
Bauer.
Allen Bauer has a very successful business.
Okay, Bauer, you're ruined. You're finished. You're a ghost in this business.
How'd you like some bananas at cost?
Deal.
He's got the wisdom and support of his brother Freddy.
I love this guy. Do you hear me? I love him. Give me a kiss. What's the matter? You too big? Give me your...
I just want to meet a woman. I want to meet a woman and I want to fall in love. It's not much.
And worst of all, Allen Bauer feels with all his heart that he doesn't have one.
Freddy, something in here is not working.
There are worse organs not to be working.
Where to? Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
And then, one day, accidentally, from out of the blue, it happens. Just looking at her is pure ecstasy. Just touching her is a lifelong fantasy come true. Just being in love with her plunges him into a wondrous world of rapture and enchantment. Just one problem stands in his way. A little secret she's trying to keep all to herself.
There is a
mermaid in New York City.
How come she's got legs?
She has legs out of the water. She has fins in the water.
What about a woman showing up naked in a public place, Freddy? Well, I'm bored, of course. Can I come in?
No!
All right, let me in.
I'll be right there. I'm just changing.
That girl is a mermaid.
All my life, I've been waiting for someone, and when I find her, she's a fish. Nobody said love's perfect. She's really hungry.
Daryl Hannah, Tom Hanks, and John Candy. Splash, a fantastic tale about a fantastic tale.
Come on in, the water's fine.
Splash! I'm Krissy Lenz, one of the directors at the Neighborhood Comedy Theater in downtown Mesa, Arizona. And with me, as always, on this podcast is my good friend.
Oh, is that me? Yay!
That's
I hate my intros. Nathan Blackwell. I'm an independent filmmaker based in Phoenix, Arizona.
An award-winning Arizona Filmmaker of the Year. He's too modest in his self-intros. Okay, so we've introduced ourselves. And it's a new season. Yay, we're back.
It's been a bit. I mean, it's been longer since we've recorded.
It is. It's been a bit. What have you been up to? You've had some exciting stuff.
Yeah, so my independent film, the movie I've been working on for the last couple of years, is now out and in the world.
Yay!
The last movie ever made. It's a comedy about the I'm sure I've brought it up at some point. It's a comedy about the world ending, and then our main character decides that the big thing he wants to do to kind of go out in the world is to finish his sci-fi movie from high school. So it's about him kind of like gathering together his friends for this like one big silly and futile thing. So the last movie ever made is now on Amazon and Apple TV, and no, it doesn't star anyone famous, but
it stars someone famous to this podcast, two of our favorite guests.
That's
several
right.
of our favorite guests.
Yeah.
Adam Reaney,
and
who you've enjoyed on Predator and Breakfast Club and Romancing the Stone and countless of our favorites. It stars Craig Michael Curtis, who you remember from Goonies and Karate Kid and several of our other favorite episodes, and
Silverado.
Silverado, yes, one of our favorites, and Megan Hughes Reaney from Dead Poets Society.
Right. So it was these. I only know the people I work with. So and then James Hohenscheit also, who is in This Is Spinal Tap.
Oh yeah. He did Spinal Tap with us, and he also did Arizona with us.
Yeah, and then behind the scenes, let's not forget Josh Castleman, who did Field of Dreams with us too.
No, not Field of Dreams, The Natural.
Oh, The Natural, duh. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So
and Alice Baker, who I think did Buckaroo Banzai Beyond the Eighth Dimension.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking about Buckaroo Banzai today. I was watching Quentin Tarantino, kind of both love and hate on it at the same time.
Oh yeah. Well, it's a complicated feeling to watch the Buckaroo Banzai.
It's true. So what have you been up to?
Well, part of the reason why we had to take a little hiatus is because my mom was having some health issues. So I was dealing with all of that. She is, you'll
Mhm.
be happy to hear, she is on the mend. She is finally doing better.
Good.
And so we're ready to kind of get back to recording. But so that was my sort of summer, was dealing with health issues in the American healthcare system, and all of the joy and wonder that brings.
And how has your summer in the Phoenix metro area been?
So what do you mean?
Have you been enjoying the weather?
Oh, no, not enjoying the weather at all. I've been in the pool a lot.
Mm,
Been doing a splash about in the pool, of
mhm.
course, and just trying to survive the heat until the fall.
Yeah, it's been rough. Like my bedroom is probably the hottest room in the house. And during the winter, it's the coolest room in the house.
Hmm.
There's not a lot of like weather insulation from the windows because the house was built in the 40s, and so probably all the windows were put in like in the 70s. And
Hmm.
so I definitely experience, people say that Phoenix doesn't experience the weather, the seasons, but I disagree.
I disagree as well. I strongly
It's just all
disagree.
invisible. That's the problem. It's all
Yeah.
invisible.
Yeah.
So, but I get that, we don't get the kind of like the fall leaves and things and visible snow. But
Right.
it does get cold.
It does.
Um,
It gets a little cold. We've had snow here and there. It doesn't stick to the ground, but it'll fall from the sky.
yeah. I mean, what compared to a lot of places, it doesn't get cold, but it gets cold. It's colder than it is like in LA.
It's cold to me.
Yes, it's cold to me too.
Yeah.
And it's, they say it's a dry heat, but we do have like monsoons, and we do have a lot of humidity in August and September. So
It's true. Except that not a lot of monsoon happening this August.
no, and not much last year either.
Nope, I think the monsoons are gone
Oh,
vis-a-vis global warming.
yeah.
No more monsoons.
So that's a perfect segue to Splash.
Yeah, monsoons are when we splash in Arizona.
uh,
Oh. Okay, so is Splash a favorite of yours?
well, I feel like it was. It was not on like the favorites playlist, but I feel like I had seen it a couple of times and
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed it, and then haven't seen it in 25 years.
Ah, nice.
How about for so I always found it charming, and there were multiple like jokes and gags and references that pop culture had reminded me were fun, that were kind of like
Mm-hmm.
in the Rolodex, which I feel like was even too old for us as a reference. But how about for you?
Oh, this was a favorite. This was a
Mm,
family favorite. This was a personal favorite. I love Splash. I've seen it 1 million times. I definitely have rewatched it and shown it to the kids. They watched it a little bit with me this time too, but they've seen it before.
mm.
Because I definitely was like, "Sit down, kids. We're gonna watch the feel good romantic comedy of all time." About a man and a mermaid. Let's sit down for Splash. Let's do it. So yeah, it's an all-time favorite. And I'm glad that
Nice.
we're finally getting around to doing it.
Yeah, I'm excited about these some of these upcoming movies. There's been the way that this podcast go is that when we first started it, there was a bunch of movies. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe you haven't done that movie. It's like, and now we've done almost everything that people have suggested, but we've kind
Mhm.
of kept a couple of movies in reserve, like a couple
Yeah.
of big hits, and so it'll be nice to finally do some of those.
Yeah, and to do some personal favorites that we've also been saving. And I would say Splash is one of those. So we start with just the sun on the water and Wooly Bully playing as we get on like a party boat or like a ferry with a family of 4.
Mm-hmm. This is like set in the 60s.
And the youngest brother is like dropping change on the ground so he can look up women's skirts.
Yeah, I feel like that joke aged really well.
Yeah, you think so? I always thought that was so silly. I was just like, this is so silly. So Alan, of the one of the sons of this family, is just like gazing out at the water, and he doesn't want to go look at Cape Cod with the family. And he sees something in the water, and he just jumps in.
Mm-hmm.
He just
Like he's hypnotized, like the sailors of old.
And he thus flings himself into the water and stays under the water and sees the cutest little girl mermaid you ever did see. And they
It seems
hold
like she's
hands and
crying.
smile. Well, she's
Yeah.
crying at the end
Mm-hmm.
when they steal him from her.
Yeah.
Because of course a man jumps off from the boat and rescues Alan. Doesn't see the mermaid. The mermaid pokes her full head and shoulders above the water and cries as Alan sails away, but no one sees her.
Yeah, that brought a lot of like feelings of like adults jumping into pools saving drowning kids.
Oh yeah, do you have a lot of feelings about that?
Well, I was once that kid. There was before I could swim, we had like these friends of family, like these 2 twin girls.
Mm-hmm.
And they decided to teach me how to swim by pushing me into the pool.
Oh no.
And I just remember, so it's like that's one of the things I see in the movies. It's like, oh, I can't swim. You know, they're just flipping and flopping on at the top of the surface. It's like, no, you are literally swimming right now.
You're doing it.
What happens if you can't swim? You just sink. You know?
You just sink? Is that what you did? You just sunk?
Yeah, you just sink. Like, I can't swim, someone pushes you in, boom, you just sink. That's what not knowing how to swim is.
Oh my god. So you didn't even instinctually dog paddle?
No, because you don't realize what happens until you've already sunk 10 feet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I remember being pulled out. But yeah, so that's what went through my head when I saw that moment.
Oh boy.
But
you
yeah,
were like, save him, save him.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, they pull her. So we have kind of have this moment in Pirates of the Caribbean too. It's like, oh, we had a connection when we were little, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so and I think it's helpful because this is ultimately a lot of what some of these 80s movies are. It's like, no, the greatest thing is love. Love is what
Yeah.
you need. And I kind of found that interesting and fresh when it eventually creeps into adult Tom Hanks when he gets dashed by his girlfriend who we never meet, you know?
Yeah, Victoria.
Yeah,
So
and
we
yeah.
flash to 20 years later, and he's running a produce barn. I don't know what you would call it, a produce wholesaling warehouse.
Uh-huh.
And his girlfriend keeps calling him, but he's, of course, too busy for her.
Yeah.
And then finally, when she does get through to him, she reveals that she's leaving him because he can't say, I love you.
Yeah.
He can't say it.
Which, you know, it's we get a lot of stories about, oh, I can't find love, but it's also interesting, you know, it usually these guys are jerks, you know, and it is interesting kind of seeing a story about a guy who just doesn't know why he's not falling in love, and he wants to, you know.
Yeah, he just wants to. He says when he's drunk on the bar and after the wedding, I just want to meet a girl and fall in love and have kids. Like, that's what I want. What is wrong with me? And it's like, well, you fell in love with the mermaid And now no one's ever good enough.
Yeah, it turns out it's really more of a fetish thing.
Yeah, because there is like one of the details I loved is that both his home and his office are full of pictures of boats and fish tanks and like pictures of the ocean and stuff. So like he really is fixated.
Yeah, and his ex-girlfriend was just getting sick of all the role play.
Yeah, she was like, I'm not a fish. It's time to move on.
Uh-huh.
So we do meet Freddy, who is his brother, played by John Candy, who comes rolling up in a Corvette and crashes into all the fruit. And he is like, they printed my letter in Penthouse Forum. And he's giving out copies all over the workplace. And he's like, obviously, the irresponsible brother who takes advantage of the situation. But he is lovable and charming and funny. And we love him instantly.
Parts of him.
Yeah, parts of him. He's clearly irresponsible. So they go to a wedding, and one of the parts that I remember is like, well, of course, Freddy is still dropping change and looking up skirts, even though he's a full adult now.
Which again has aged super well.
Yes. Yes, so the dropping change to look up skirts is a modern day classic.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the parts that I always remember is that like he's being an usher at the wedding and everyone's like, where's that beautiful woman of yours? And he's like, at first he's like, she's sick, she's not coming. And then more people ask and he's like, she's not here, okay? Sit anywhere but the first 3 rows. And I don't know, for some reason that part stuck out to me.
Yeah.
So they do the whole wedding.
And I think that was actually part of his audition too. You know, I think when they auditioned, they did Tom Hanks's audition, because another interesting thing about this movie is that like the parts were all offered to like 10 people before they settled on Tom Hanks, and then they also settled on Daryl Hannah. Like it was just offered to everyone, and they all turned it down. You know, they were really, and I think Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah are great in it. You know, they're like career defining roles. But I totally get why the top 10 actors would say, I don't know about that.
Sure,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think just seeing like on YouTube some clips of his Tom Hanks's audition, I think this scene was in it, just to kind of seeing how he elevates his responses and gets more and more frustrated and starts yelling at people.
Which I love. And that's a perfect young Tom Hanks move.
Mm-hmm.
So after the wedding, they get all drunk. Freddy gets him very drunk, and they're meeting girls, and he's like sleeping on the bar, and he's like stumbling into couples and being like, "You're in love. Why can't I be in love?" And he decides to take a cab to Cape Cod, which is 300 miles away. Still in his tuxedo. So we get there and he's wandering around the beaches in a tuxedo, and he runs into the unsung hero of this film, Eugene Levy, who is unloading scientific equipment with his 2 idiot companions. And it's all just labeled scientific instruments. But we don't know what this guy's up to or what he's doing. And Tom Hanks is like, hey, can you give me a ride to the other side of the island? And they're like, no, get out of here. I'm a scientist. Who sent you? He's like, nobody sent me. Oh, you just happen to be a beachcomber in a tuxedo? And he's like, okay, you're a jerk. I'm going to walk away from you. And he gets a ride out to the other side of the island or out to the island with a guy named Fat Jack, whose little dinghy dies in the middle of the ocean, and he just jumps out to swim to shore to get the other little boat. He's like, I'll be back. It's only a few miles. So Tom Hanks is left on his own, sitting in a little dinghy in the ocean, and he tries to start the boat, and he falls in and bumps his head, and he is doing what you said. He's just sinking because he says he can't swim.
Good. They finally learned how to drown.
Yeah. When all of a sudden a mermaid saves him.
Oh my gosh, who knew?
She saves him and brings him to shore, but he loses his wallet in the ocean. And she, of course, is smart enough to go find his wallet
Mm-hmm.
and
And
consult
look
a
up
map.
which is which I guess was laminated because it looks like it's from like the 1800s from a sunken ship, but it's still in remarkable condition.
Mm-hmm. And it, of course, has modern day Manhattan on it.
Right. It
In a
says
way that
modern day Manhattan
is here.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, okay, I just need to swim 300 miles. So I did see, because I watched this on Disney Plus. How did you watch?
I did as well.
Okay. So there's that scene where she rescues him, and she's looking at him on the beach, and she runs away from him, where they covered her butt in digital hair.
Oh, that's interesting.
So her hair is quite long, and it comes down to her butt. But the Disney Plus version, they added more digital hair to cover more of her butt.
Well, some people are into that.
A hairy butt?
Look, I'm not speaking for myself.
No, just about drowning is when you're speaking for yourself.
Yeah, drowning. Pro drowning.
Yeah. So she goes and it's really cute when she's in this shipwreck and she's looking at the map, but that must have been so hard to film.
Mm-hmm.
All that underwater stuff, because I've done a little bit of underwater photography for
I've seen your reel. Yes, your underwater acting reel.
Yeah, I mean, I've never done underwater acting, but I've done underwater photography for the Greatest International Scavenger Hunt. Like I've done an underwater camping scene, I've done an underwater office scene, I've done an underwater haircut scene, I've done an underwater maid and butler and servant scene, and it is really hard to sink down into the water. It's really hard to keep your face smooth when you're holding your breath. And it's just like, I mean, how do they film those things if not like 30 seconds at a time, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like just off frame are the divers giving her oxygen, and then she goes out, and then as soon as it's yelled cut, then all the safety divers swim in, Yeah, that's got to be nuts. And then plus people's holding your breath, being underwater, your face looks puffy and things like that. So yeah, it's a real safety concern.
Yeah, and it's just got to be a nightmare to film. Anytime I see underwater scenes, I feel so bad for the actors who had to do it. So she arrives at the Statue of Liberty naked. And one of the other parts I remember is that like the tour guide is doing his spiel over and over again, and he's like, "She's a symbol of pride and victory for naked women everywhere. Bocce balls!" And
this was a time during, like, in the early 80s. There was a time where you had really aggressive, like secondary, like not cameo characters, but just very like aggressive minor characters, like bit parts and character actors. Like they were very aggressive, in their comedy style. And it feels almost like something that's like a result of like Caddyshack and Stripes and things like that. And I would say a good 50% of them have like really exaggerated New York accents.
And I love it. And it works for me. I think it plays nicely. So they get her a they're like, "This is not California, miss. We don't go for this kind of stuff around here." But all they do is give her a t-shirt, and she's got Allen Bauer's wallet, and so she's like pointing at it, and they're like, "Okay, I guess we call this guy." So they call him at the produce mart, and he runs down to the police station, and they're like, I guess she's with you. She had your wallet. And he's like, yeah, she's with me. And they're smooching. So the cops are all like, all right, I guess you know her. Who is she? And he's like, I have no idea. But in a move pulled straight out of Overboard, they're like, well, I guess she can just go with you anyway.
Yeah, we're too busy. Go ahead and take her.
We don't know who she is. We don't know who you are. We don't know why she had your wallet. You can't prove who you are because she had your wallet. We'll just let her go with you. This mute woman who appeared naked on our shores.
Mm-hmm.
She can be yours now. She's not our problem anymore. So they go to his apartment, and she's like really dazzled by all of the sights and the sounds and the real world. Like, she loves the revolving door, and she loves that he has like fish and shells and stuff all around his house. He brings her food because he's gonna leave her, but they're just on the what's the expression I always use? The bullet train to Pound Town.
Oh, yes.
They're just in the bone zone, getting to not know each other because she can't speak English still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he does leave her, and he goes to work, and he takes a nap at work. He's like, Freddy, you got this. I'm just gonna take a nap. You'll be fine. So why did he leave her? Why didn't he just take a nap at home?
Yeah. Call off work,
Mm-hmm. That always bothered me. But it's because she needs to go have a little adventure on her own. She puts on one of his suits and asks to go to Bloomingdale's, which she saw a commercial for on the TV. So apparently she can learn to speak English really easily by watching TV.
Yeah, her pronunciation is great.
Yep. Bloomingdale's, she says. And so the cab driver puts her into the thing at Bloomingdale's. And at Bloomingdale's, everything is dazzling, and she's so excited by it. She's looking at the makeup counter. She's looking at the TVs. And a personal shopper is like, "Oh, honey, like that look is over. Women wearing suits is so 1983. We need to get you some fresh clothes." So she gets her all these bags and bags and boxes of clothes because does she have Allen's credit card at this point?
I don't think I was watching that and going, okay, so when is she going to get in trouble for not having money, or is he going to show up and pay for everything? But I don't think it's addressed.
I don't think so either.
Because she's wearing a t-shirt, right?
She's wearing his suit.
Oh, that's right. She's wearing his suit, so she could have a wallet in there. But no, I don't think she thought to bring money. I think he's got to pay for it when he picks her up.
Yeah, and he picks her up at the end of the day. She's been watching the TVs all day, and she learned to speak English.
Right.
But she speaks English like as if she's a commercial.
Mm-hmm. And they don't really lean into that gag very long. Like, she should have been watching Sesame Street or something.
Yeah. But she was watching like game shows and jazzercise and stuff like that. So he asks her name, and she pronounces it in ocean speak, which is like ee, like a dolphin. And she breaks all the TVs. So I guess he has to pay for those too. He must be a very rich produce slinger.
Just like dolphins do. Yes.
Yeah. So he's asking her lots of questions. Who are you? Where are you from? What are you into? Like, what is the deal? How long can you stay? And she's like running around New York City being like, what's this? What's this? What's this? This is beautiful. It's the stoplights.
Right. And she names herself too.
Yes, she invents the name, which is still popular to this day, Madison, after Madison Avenue.
Right.
Which I guess is like being named after James Madison, the president.
Right. And so this is where it really got popularized, the name Madison, and now you can't throw a rock and hit two Madisons at the same time.
Yep. It's a very popular name made up by the movie Splash from 1984. So she reveals that she can only stay for 6 fun-filled magical days while the moon is full, and then she has to go back. While he's sleeping that night, she takes a bath full of salt, and we get a really fun scene where he's like banging on the door, freaking out, needing to get in and interrupt her self-care time. And she's like, "No, don't come in. She's blow drying her fin off, and then all of a sudden he comes in and she's got legs. And that's always been one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, it was. Can we? It was a neat effect where because we actually see it. Her leg turn into a fin, and that was a really cool effect. Yeah, they basically do a shrink wrap effect, and then basically the fake leg skin tightens up and goes around. The fin mermaid texture.
Yeah. It's really cool. And the tail unfurls.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the effects in this movie are really quite good.
Right. But let me say that I was kind of set up for so she basically she's drawing a bath of water and she's putting the salt in. I kept thinking, not to jump ahead, but Eugene Levy, he keeps trying to reveal her as a mermaid by finding ways to splash her with water. And I kept thinking, because they introduced the salt, that no, only salt water will do it. Because there's also another point where she runs out and then it starts raining. We don't see her get wet, but I'm thinking that the salt is important because it was shown, previously, but
yeah. See, that would make more sense to me because the ocean has salt water.
Yeah, exactly. But then, you don't get that big the ending that they go for, which was
so she should be able to get in a pool and still be a human.
Right, exactly. But that's just
our wish list.
Yeah, dear Ron Howard.
True.
Dear 1980s Ron Howard.
Well, meanwhile, Eugene Levy is up to something. He is exploring the ocean floor. He did catch a glimpse of Madison in our very first scene. And he is obsessed with trying to find a mermaid. He sees in the paper that the naked woman was at the I think I said the Eiffel Tower, the Statue of Liberty.
Right. America's Eiffel Tower.
America's Eiffel Tower, the Statue of Liberty. And he's like, "That's her. That's the mermaid I saw."
Yeah, his brain is broken. He tries bringing all this information to the legit scientists who think he's a nut, because he is. And for whatever reason, he's been obsessed on this mermaid quest because his mentor was talking about it. So for him, it's this whole gateway into being respected as a scientist.
Yeah.
But he's really just an angry nutball.
Yeah. So Madison and Allen go on a date and they look at this big mermaid statue fountain, and Allen's like, "I've always loved this fountain. It's always brought me peace." And she's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, because it's basically a picture of me." And he plays racquetball with Freddy, who is smoking and drinking beer on the racquetball court, which I just that's a part that's always endeared me. I always loved John Candy,
#best life. Yes.
Yeah. Smoking and drinking on the racquetball court. We go back to the house and Madison has purchased the fountain for Allen and placed it in his bedroom, I think.
There are some issues with this gag, but I think the movie doesn't care. The movie knows, and the movie doesn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's obviously no way that the fountain could have gotten in through the door or through any other part of the apartment. But but the movie knows, and again, the movie doesn't care.
Nope. It just wants Allen to have a big fountain in his living room and for her to be like, "It's a gift."
Mm-hmm.
And again, like she put it on his credit card, so he must have
No,
excellent
she
credit.
didn't
Oh,
she
she
trade in
traded her
her
beautiful necklace for it.
right, which I don't think we've established was necessarily valuable, but it could have been.
It might have been ocean diamonds.
Yeah, ocean diamonds. Oh my god, they are very valuable. Ocean
They're
diamonds.
very rare. So Eugene Levy keeps splashing the wrong lady and getting beaten up.
Yes. So he's in a cast and he's schlepping around, stalking them.
And continuing splashing the same wrong lady.
Yes. And getting attacked by the same guy.
Yep. So they go on another date. They eat a lobster and she like eats the shell of the lobster and he's like,
Mhm.
I want you to stay. And she's like, I can't stay. And he's like, well, there are ways we can get around it. I can give you a job. We can get a visa. Do you want to get married to me? And she's like, no, I have to go back to my home. And they go
Yeah.
ice skating. And she's like, let's just make the most of the days that we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She doesn't. She keeps saying that she's got to get back in 5 days. She's got to get back in 4 days. She's got to back. So we've got this countdown going on. We don't really know what is behind the time limit. We're obviously filling in the gap that, oh, well, she doesn't belong here. She's a mermaid. Maybe she turns into foam or something like
Yeah,
that.
she goes
Like,
all
you
Hans
know,
Christian Andersen and turns
yeah,
into the sea foam.
exactly. So we're kind of allowing it. It's not really explained, but we're able to kind of fill in the gap. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. You know, she's not talking a lot about her past. She's obviously not revealing that she's a mermaid, and there's not really anyone for her to talk to about so that the audience can get this information outside of what Tom Hanks knows.
Right. And he starts being really mean to her and he's like, they don't have ice where you're from, they don't have music where you're from, they don't have sarcasm where you're from. What is this place? And she's like, I can't tell you.
It's
And so
Switzerland.
it rains and she gets trapped under a bridge. But when it stops raining, she goes and finds him and she's like, okay, I'll stay. I'll marry you. Let's do this.
Yeah. Which, I don't know. Yeah, emotionally, it's conflicting, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
is she still going to have a problem in 2 or 3 days? Or is it her way of just embracing the moment so he stops acting like a sad sack, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it does kind of suck that he wasn't able to, you know, it's like in his mind, like like the things that are running through his mind is like, oh, she's got to go back home. Maybe she even has a relationship wherever she's from, you know, from her accent. Like, where can she be from? Canada? But then again, she
Yeah.
didn't know English, so maybe she is from Sweden or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
But in his mind, you know, also, this is the first time he's really experienced fairy tale love, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of
And
in his own way.
he's totally besotted and he wants to get married right now. Like he's like, oh, we have to get a blood test.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, before we get the blood test, you have to let me tell you my big secret. And he's like, yeah, your big secret, whatever it is, I don't care. And he's just like basically blowing her off. She's trying to find an opportunity to tell him her big secret. And he's just like, yeah. Oh, we'll go to Maine. We can get married in Maine without a blood test. And she's like, okay. But first we have to go to dinner with the president.
Uh-huh.
What?
Like it could have been the senator. It could have but they aimed high and they went for the president.
Yeah, they've got to go to dinner with the president.
Uh-huh.
And at dinner with the president, of course, Eugene Levy is able to isolate her and spray her down with water. And behold, the mermaid he has revealed her to all in front of the president.
And luckily, there's immediately, like, the Secret Service also doubles as like a scientific quarantining. It's like, wow, it's a mermaid. We have to grab her. So
And
they
they do.
immediately,
They grab her.
yeah, which I find so incredibly realistic.
Yeah.
I feel
Just
like
grab her.
if there was a werewolf, if like Michael J. Fox turned into a werewolf, I feel like the Secret Service's duty is to grab him and then put him in a limo and then a secret installation. Like immediately. They've been trained for this.
Yep. And they have all the equipment ready. They have all the tanks and stuff. Like
Yeah.
Tom
It
Hanks is in a tank. It's Tank Hanks.
thinking, yeah, it kind of feels there's some moments with this ending where it feels a little Blues Brothersy, like
Oh,
like
so.
like the threat has been elevated so high that it's got to be like 100 soldiers that chase after them, all with weapons drawn, and they're ready to shoot them because, god damn it, it's a mermaid.
Yeah. We need to get the mermaid.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to remember how anti-mermaid people in the 80s were,
Yeah.
This is just a natural reaction.
Well, because they reveal that they're gonna kill her. They're gonna open her up and like do an autopsy on her. Basically, they're like, we've only got one mermaid. Let's kill it as quickly as
Right.
possible.
Get that mermaid gold in their belly.
But they determine that Tom Hanks is not a mermaid by sinking him in a vat of water for like 2 days or something, and they put her in with Madison.
He's not a merman.
He's not a merman. And she's like, so this is my secret. And he's like, yep, good secret. And he's like bitching to Freddy. And he's like, I finally meet a woman I can fall in love with, and she's a fish. And he's like, nobody said love was perfect. You can't you can never be as happy as you were with her. I'll never be that happy. Most of us never get to be that happy. You got to make the most of this, brother, because even though she's a mermaid, she's your mermaid and you love her. So he's like, yeah, you're right. Let's go save her. And of course, the way to do this is to confront Eugene Levy at the dentist for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And he just found him at the dentist and confronts him and is like, you're going to help me get her out. And he's like, you're right. I'm going to help you get her out. Because all of a sudden he feels bad. He doesn't want them to kill the mermaid. He just wanted to find the mermaid. And he even says he didn't think about how it would affect them to reveal that she's a mermaid. So they come up with a plan to break her out. They pretend to be Swedish Swedish doctors there to do the autopsy. And the guard at the gate actually speaks Swedish. And he's like, what are two Swedish people doing so far from home? And John Candy says in Swedish, I have a 12-inch penis. And the guy's just like, okay, well, off you go then. And he's like, well, you watch enough Swedish porn, you pick up on these things.
Yeah, I don't know if in the original version that part was translated. Like, I felt like maybe it's just my own memory. Like, I felt like he just said something to them, and we were left to guess what it was, But Disney Plus,
I think it's Disney Plus is weird. It's like it won't let you see a butt, but it'll let you hear all about a 12-inch penis.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's more progressive.
Yeah, they're getting there. They've got Deadpool now. They're getting all kinds of progressive. So they break her out. They leave Freddy behind, and they're like, oh, she shot rays out of her eyes, and don't go in there. It's carnage. She's got laser eyes, and we gotta run. I gotta get this guy out. Don't look at his face. So they just get in the car and drive away. And at first they're like, I think we got away. And then, of course, like the entire National Guard starts chasing them. So Allen and Madison have to run to the water. And they're standing at the water's edge. They're about to get shot by like all of the soldiers that are coming to kill them. And he's like, you can't stay with me, so you've got to go back to your ocean home. And she's like, come with me, but you can never ever come back. And he's like, no, I won't. Go, you go. And then at the end, he's like, no, I will come with you. And he jumps in and he doesn't stink. He says he can't swim, but he's swimming really well, as you say. He doesn't just stink. He's like literally swimming. And she goes and saves him with a kiss. And then we get a really long scene at the end of the two of them swimming underwater. He like takes off his suit jacket, but he's still wearing a suit and shoes.
Right.
And he's like swimming in his shoes and being like, look, fish. And she's like, yep, come on.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, like the roles are reversed. It's like, yeah, it's a fish. Come on.
Yeah. And then they go to a mermaid wonderland at the end. And that's Splash from 1984. Mermaid Wonderland.
So if it kept going, what do you think would happen? Like if there was a sequel, I mean, so apparently there was
a sequel.
It's a TV movie where everyone is recast. It's Splash 2 TOO.
Yep. And it's just about them coming back to Manhattan.
Yeah.
Like I would want to see what happens in the mermaid zone, like where all the people are like, what is this gross guy with feet?
Yeah, you flip it around and you have it's and I feel like when people used, like, especially in the 80s, the whole idea of fish out of water, I feel like it was kind of this movie that coined that phrase. You know, I know like the literal Little Mermaid story obviously existed before this, you know, but I feel like this kind of like was a big hit in 1984 and became kind of like the new, like, oh, and like the fish out of water outsider kind of bumbling around an environment, kind of like Crocodile Dundee and things like that, you know.
Yeah,
but I
get
but also, like, this same year was Beverly Hill Cops singular, which was also kind of a fish out of water story. So maybe it was just more of the term that this movie helped kind of coin, because we were already into, like, you know, it's like, oh, it's so wacky that they're here, you know.
This Detroit cop in LA, ha ha ha, he's not gonna like how it works here.
Right. But it'd be interesting to have the continuation of the story of him, a fish out of water, or a what's the opposite of a fish out of water?
A man in a man out of land.
A man out of land. Oh, the classic man out of land story of him trying to navigate, and we realize just how, like, oh no, it's like you got to get a job, you got to make you didn't go to any college down under here, you know. It's like, well, good luck trying to find a good career. Like, it's just like, so the bureaucracy.
Also, you can't talk.
Yeah, exactly. So he's got to learn. He's got to watch their TV,
mermaid TV, and hoping he can learn in an afternoon.
Yeah.
He's got to get some mermaid clothes. He's got to hide that he doesn't have a fin. Will he eventually grow a fin? Can he get someone to magic him a fin? These are all the questions that we have.
Right. Which I assume they tackle in Splash 2.
Yeah, TOO. So on a scale of 1 mermaid fountain to 10 mermaid fountains, how many mermaid fountains do you give Splash?
I think I'm gonna go with a 7.
A 7?
Yes, a 7. Are you upset at such a low rating?
I am a little upset at such a low rating. That's mannequin territory.
Well, I liked Mannequin a lot.
I liked Mannequin a lot too. But I'm going to give it an 8.5.
Okay. Well, I feel like your childhood has biased you.
Okay, that's probably true.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. There's a heck of a lot of charm, and I feel like we have not allotted Daryl Hannah enough. Like, I feel like the movie really clicks.
She's great.
The movie really, for me, clicked once her character was
able to speak English.
Yes, because it's because it's really her. You know, it's not that she's naive. It's not that she's childlike. Is that she has an innocence that is very charming, and it's not that she's doesn't understand how things are. It's just that her heart, she's wearing her heart on her sleeve,
Yeah. She
And
is, and the way that she like kisses him and stuff, and she says to him at the very end, we didn't talk about this, but she says, "Remember when you were 8 and you fell into the water? You were safe because you were with me." And he was like, "That was you?" And she's like, "No, it was the other mermaid who stalks you."
There's a lot of stalkers in this, but yeah, I feel like the innocence of her heart was had a great deal of charm to it, like I love seeing baby Tom Hanks, and John Candy is always fun, but I felt like in terms of like the characters themselves, that's the moment where I really started to get more interested in,
Yeah, and I love Eugene Levy in it too.
Yeah, and I mean you grow to like him because he is kind of an antagonist. He's meant to be annoying at the beginning, and kind of does a flip, to where he becomes one of the good guys when he realizes the consequences of his actions.
And this is what I always think of when I think of Eugene Levy. Now, of course, it's Schitt's Creek, but
right, exactly. But yeah, this is classic Levy.
Classic Levy. So speaking of Schitt's Creek, what about a deep cut recommendation?
Great. You go first.
I have one, which is a documentary that is on Netflix called Mer People.
Mer People?
Mer People. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's the story of people who perform as live mermaids.
Oh.
If you've seen this at like the Renaissance Festival or like Vegas or places where you go and there's like live human mermaids.
Or like a sci-fi movie club,
No, I didn't know that Sci-Fi Movie Club has live mermaids.
No, like a sci-fi club in a movie.
Is what?
You see mermaids in sci-fi movies. It's like, oh, our movie is our club in this movie is so sci-fi that we've got mermaids in the background.
Oh, okay. I was not following you there. I was like, what? But these are like real life people, and it's like the struggles that they go through to like get their tails and learn to hold their breath and learn to sink and learn to swim gracefully and like to get gigs and be professionals, and like how hard it is and how they have to open their eyes in salt water and fill up their sinuses with salt water, and like how sometimes they panic, and like the elites among them and the people who are trying to break into the biz, and it's just fascinating. Like I went into it expecting to sort of laugh at them like a Tiger King situation, like, oh, this is going to be hilarious, but then you really fall in love with them and then like want to see them succeed on their journey.
Wow.
So I highly recommend Mer People on Netflix.
Mer People.
What do you think? Did you come up with one?
So I'll go, but it's not a good one.
Okay, that's fine. I've had some duds in the past too.
Okay, so this is probably the recommendation I'm least happy about, just because I'm struggling on this one because but the ending kind of reminds me and makes me want to revisit Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh, all right.
So there's so if we had to draw some parallels, is that something that the character desperately wants, and then there's basically an outside force that he feels like will make him be whole again. But it's an interesting thing, and I feel like it's kind of the same ending, not to give away Either if you haven't seen them, but it's like, do I go off and leave this world? You can never return. That's kind of the bargain they give them at the end. You can come with me, but you can never return. So with like Richard Dreyfuss and the aliens, does he go with the aliens? Well, he has a family. He has
has a whole family. Yep.
Like it's a little more of a fraught situation, and that was kind of the result of, you know, Spielberg being 30 years old and saying, I probably would leave my family.
Yeah.
Because the family kind of sucked, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, like Tom Hanks can't go back. You know, I feel like it's a little less of a difficult situation in Splash, but it's kind of the same thing. Like, he's never going to see his brother again, or at least that's what he's told, you know?
Yeah, until we get Splash 2.
Yeah, until we get Splash 2.
Maybe there was a Close Encounters 2 that was made for TV.
Right. I feel like not a lot of people who were on Splash 1 were on Splash 2, though, you know? Decision makers and things like that. So it's hard to say if it's truly canon.
Yeah. Okay, well that works. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you. Please do all the things for us that help podcasts, like, rate, review, subscribe, tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell your dentist, tell somebody, tell Eugene Levy, who will tell your dentist. And if you want a little bit more from
there's more
excellent 80s movies podcast, yes, there's more. You can become a member at True Story FM. You get every episode a week early, and you get some extra bonus chit chat at the end with Krissy and Nathan, and sometimes with our guests. Bonus content. And it's just $5 a month. It helps support the podcast. We appreciate you so much for doing that. Nathan, we said at the beginning, but tell us again, where can we find your movie and rent or buy it?
Right. So the last movie ever made is on Amazon Prime. It's on Amazon. You still have to rent it or pay for it at this point. And it's also on Apple TV. And so that's in the US. And then I believe it's also on Apple in the UK as well.
Excellent. And you can come to the Neighborhood Comedy Theater in downtown Mesa, Arizona. Find all our showtimes and tickets at nctphoenix.com. That's N for neighborhood, C for comedy, T for theater, and Phoenix all spelled out, PHOENIX.com, where you can find me doing comedy every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. Thank you for listening. And while you're out there in the world, remember to keep the most excellent podcast motto in mind. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.
In a world of chaos, you have the power to unlock a time-warping version of our show with a peek behind the scenes and even more Nathan and Krissy banter.
That's right. When you become a member of the most excellent 80s movies podcast at truestory.fm, you get episodes 1 week early.
Plus, each episode has bonus content for your listening delight and amusement that you can't get anywhere else.
And you can hop onto the truestory.fm Discord to join the conversation there too, where we chat about our show and all the other shows that truestory.fm has to offer.
So be a hero to this podcast and a hero to your ears. Go to True Story FM today, click on our show page, and become a member.
And when you're out there in the world, be sure to keep the most excellent 80s movies podcast motto in mind. Be excellent to each other and party on,
dudes.